As you walk through life, do you ever notice changes? Do you ever sit down and think about people, events that shifted your path? See, in this age of information we live in, we have unlimited potential to connect with people. But are we consciously aware of those connections? Personally, I mentally analyze this every day, taking note of people and places that move my environment. I've noticed that every time I progress, it's been the direct result of my link to people around me. With that being said, I want to share this journey. This is my story through your story. I'm Michael Mims, and you're watching Conscious Connection. So Dr. T really has an amazing story. His impact on Loris has been huge. He's been doing cancer research and helping other students learn how to do the same research, having the opportunity that not a lot of people have in college to do something like that with an amazing person that cares about the student and cares about the person that they're researching. He really cares about his work. A lot of people, they care about their work, but they don't devote themselves to it like he does. He wholeheartedly believes in everything that he does and bounces off students like me. When I was in that classroom, he brought more out of me. He could pull stuff out of certain people and relate to people, and he could bring stuff out of me and relate to me. I could take that to anything that I apply it to, and he made sure to get that point across.
Sure. Keith Train-Borowski. I'm an assistant professor of kinesiology and biology.
Kind of what's your story? How did you get into this position? What kind of lessons did you learn along the way? And,
Sure.
Who affected you along that path?
It's funny that who affected me thing is also probably why I chose this path. When I was an undergrad, there was a professor who resonated with me, and I was really trying to, like a lot of people are, right, as an undergrad, trying to find my own way, trying to figure out who I was and being comfortable in my own skin and trying to figure out like what I wanted to do with my life. And there was a professor who kind of saw through the punk rock thing and all the pink hair and the earrings and everything else, and was like, I was in his exercise physiology class, and he said, why don't you come do research with me? And like most undergrads, like, no thanks, I don't think I want to do that. So, and he kept pushing, like, why don't you come do this with me? And I finally did, and it was life-changing to me. Not necessarily the research itself, but as a third-year undergrad, I got to go to a national conference and present research that I worked on. And I went there, and the very first night we were in town, we went to some restaurant and there and having a beer and talking about the work. And then one by one, these people started coming in, and they were the people that you were studying in your classroom. Right? You remember this guy? That's him. Really? Remember that guy? We talked about this person? That's them. Really? And, then you're all sitting there and you're talking about your field and your work and how you make the field better through your work. And so I remember looking at him halfway through this dinner and kind of giving the elbow and saying, let me get this straight. So you teach classes, and he was a great teacher, right? And I always wanted to teach. You teach classes, you do this thing. And then you actually do science, and this science matters, that helps push your field forward. And then you all get together in a big group and have a beer and have food and talk about it. And he said, yeah, it's pretty much my job. I thought, that's what I want to do, for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I feel like, with any major, I guess it's the same way, but especially with research, like, I feel like students have research papers, and they just, when they think about research, they're like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. But once you feel like you're impacting somebody, or you're actually helping out the world see something different, then it becomes very meaningful.
For sure. That part of it's fun for me. I think people, because I am a researcher here and I do a lot of research, I think I teach, as you know, a research methods course on campus, and I think people are like, oh, that must be your favorite course to teach. It's not my favorite course to teach. But what I really do like about teaching that course is most people, when they come in to that, are like, I don't want to take research methods. I'm not going to be a researcher. And it's important to get through the point that it doesn't matter what you're going to do when you leave here, but if you 20 years from now are still only doing what you learned in your college classroom, right, you're probably not really good at what you do. And especially in the sciences and allied health fields and things like if you're a PT, right, if you are practicing PT, and again, 5 years from now, 8 years from now, you're only doing what you learn in class, then all of your peers are way ahead of you. You're not doing well by your patients. Importantly, the research that continues is what moves your field forward, right? And so my goal when I'm talking research or teaching research, outside of the research I do, is just the ability for you to vet literature, scientific literature or research, right? When you are reading something, you being able to say like, hey, this, I'm not so sure about this, or wait a minute, this seems to have some validity to it, like this is pretty good. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like, especially in the scientific field, you're not, especially as a professor, you're almost a student all the time too. You're always trying to learn something new, which is
for sure. Cool. I think that's part of the reason that a lot of people that are academics or professors gravitate towards the field. Because, I mean, for me, I said that story, which is true, regarding why I loved, why I wanted to do this. But the reason I really love this work is, I mean, mostly the students. But think about a college campus. A college campus is the fountain of youth. And not in some inappropriate way when you think that, like all the students are your buddy and you're staying young, right? But, I don't care if it's athletics, if it's food, if it's art, if it's sports, if it's, music, a scene. You are surrounded by an energy on a college campus that is great. Like, we are on the cutting edge of doing cancer research. Well, we're also on the cutting edge of a whole mess of things just because of where you're at. And every time I've been on a bunch of different college campuses in my time, and every time it doesn't matter. They're all very different. Yet that energy is always there, and that's just the raddest thing. You pick up on that. I do cancer research, and I have cancer patients actually on campus here. And in the beginning, I was worried about having them exercise in the AWC because, there's a lot of music pumping in there, a lot of college students doing their thing, and I thought, wow, are some 60, 70, 80-year-olds who have cancer going to be comfortable working out in this environment? And truthfully, it was the exact opposite. Thankfully, we have a community here that's very welcoming and very friendly, and so patients get that. But they talked about the energy of these college students, right? So that is really cool. Like, I just love being part of a campus. I loved it as a student, and now I love it as a professor.
Rewinding a little bit more, when you were super young, what were your dreams and aspirations, and how did they turn? I guess you talked about how they turned in college, but how did they kind of switch?
Yeah.
Throughout your
when I went to college, I thought like the stereotypical, I'm going to bring a guitar and sit under a tree and write poetry and, do the whole thing. And so I went to college as an English major. I was like, next great songwriter. And I got a D in that class. Because, maybe this is, and so like a lot of students do, I bounced around trying to find my thing. I thought athletic training was going to be my thing for a while. I played sports in high school, was a little guy, so I was hurt all the time. So I spent a lot of time in the training room and really thought it was cool. This idea of exercise as medicine, that's always been the line that you can draw through my career. The idea that we can use physical activity and exercise as prevention for disease or treatment of disease or injuries or ailments or whatever these things are. And I thought it was cool. So then I was like, okay, so I'm going to do the AT thing. And then while I was in AT, then I was exposed to exercise and chronic disease, cardiac rehabilitation, things like that. And then I met that professor and then kind of went down that tangent. I mean, I honestly, as much as I talk about how much I want to be a professor, this was the backup gig. And this is really embarrassing. I can't believe I'm saying it. But it was always, for me, I wanted to play music. I really did. I wanted to play music. I also didn't want to be 40 living in my parents' basement. So for me, it was, you got to have a backup plan. And truthfully, I part of the reason, I'm not suggesting I'm good enough to make it, right? But that backup plan becomes your reality real quick. There's a lot of people who are saying, no, I'm all in. I'm moving to LA and I'm going to do the acting thing, or I'm moving to New York and do the music thing, or whatever that is. And I have tons of respect for that. For me, I didn't understand that there were other careers in music, sound engineering, music production, lighting. I didn't know the career. It was like either you are playing Madison Square Garden or you're living in your parents' attic when you're 40, and I'm like, I don't want to be doing that. So I better have a backup plan. And then 14 years of college later in this job, and like, this is my backup plan. So, but I feel like I carry that passion that I have for music and for art with me. Again, maybe slightly embarrassing, but since we're talking about this, when I'm teaching, a lot of times it does feel like being on a stage. I know that may sound weird, but if you're playing music on a stage somewhere, you're doing something, I don't know, stand-up comedian, some kind of performance piece, and you're looking at your audience, and they're just kind of sitting there looking at you like this. If you're good at what you do, you're thinking about, man, I got to change this up. Like, I got to get you on your feet, get you dancing, get you moving, right? So teaching is the same way. If I'm just talking at you and you're sitting there like this, that's not fun for anybody, right? If I'm trying something and it's not working, how do we switch this up on the fly to try to, like, all right, get him back into it? And it is more often than not. I feel like sometimes teaching can be, I have that same approach as like when I'm going to play guitar somewhere, like, and that sounds weird, but I feel that way sometimes.
I mean, with my field in business, I feel like, because it's really not an embarrassing thing to have that passion for something else, like with music. It's just an industry where some people get luckier than others, because there could be the same talent level, but it's just some people go on and they end up getting seen by the right person.
No doubt.
So, and I mean, it's like, I guess what I'm trying to say in business, on social media, you see these people who probably try to be athletes, or they're very competitive, but they're using their business stage and their competitive mindset to win on social media too, and like, that's their stage now. And
right,
same thing you're talking about, where you're using that classroom as your stage.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how passions can transfer. It's not really just one track mindset.
For sure.
Which is awesome.
For sure. I totally agree with that. And I mean, first of all, I'd rather be lucky than good any day.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the reasons where, like, somebody told me once when I was actually considering the Loris job, the idea of luck is just being you putting yourself in a position to take advantage of opportunities when they're presented to you, right? And I thought about that a lot. It's like, okay, because I feel like I'm a really lucky guy. Part of it is also being able to jump when that opportunity is there. And then, yeah, the stage, it is. I've thought about this more than I'd like to admit regarding how I've transferred that energy of what I wanted to do on a stage to what I do in a classroom. And I get a lot of that same enjoyment out of it. And I think students pick up on that. I think students can feel like when you're not phoning in, when you're in the front of that classroom and you're like, yeah, versus like when you see any kind of performance artist when they get up there and you're like, you are going through the motions right now, versus, yeah, you wrote this song and this is your words, or you still feel this and you're doing this. Audience picks up on that. I think it's the same in the classroom. A student can tell if you phoned it in or didn't, are not caring about this. So you better bring your A game. Yeah.
So Dr. T really has an amazing story. He has one that carries on, that a lot of people do throughout their lives. They start off with kind of a one-track mind, thinking they're gonna do one thing, but it really just takes one person to show them where they need to be guided. Like I always say, that God puts certain people in your life for two reasons, either a lesson or a blessing. He had one professor that led him down one path that helped him end up where he wants to be today and where he is today. He thought he was gonna go straight to music. He was able to transfer that passion from one thing to another. There's so many different things in life that you are probably good at, that you may have a gift for, because there's so many things that you could do. It's all based on your decision making. It's huge how he kind of talked about the energy and environment around him. He works with cancer patients. Said that those cancer patients, when you put them in the environment with college kids, they loved it. It's amazing how much the energy and environment around you builds up who you are. That quote saying, like, you're only as good as the people you surround yourself with. If you have people that are having good conversations with you, you're learning, you're growing with them, you're going to be where you want to be. If you have people that have conversations that are diminishing you, you're not going to grow, you're going to do the opposite. It's a thing where you have to put yourself in position to really be successful. Another thing he really talked about that was super inspiring to me. It was super inspiring. Like, if you have a passion for something, you can take that same passion and transfer it, use it to your advantage, the environment that you're in currently. You love music, you loved being on stage, moving the crowd, moving people. That's what artists and musicians do. Now he's in a classroom, taking that same energy, applying that to teaching. He wants the audience, the student, to move, feed off him. In my life, I lived and breathed basketball. I loved the sport of basketball, still love it to this day. Sadly, can't do it. But I love the process more than the actual outcome. Just because this stops for me doesn't mean it has to stop for somebody else. I took that same energy and applied it to other athletes. Now I'm teaching them how to get better, helping them get results, and helping them love that grind at the same time. Because there's so many different avenues that you can take within something that you love. Try everything out, because it's always the right decision to try. If you guys like this video, if it helped you out, if you feel like you've been impacted in a positive way from this video, please drop your comments, subscribe, like, all that, share it. If you think it can help out a friend, definitely share it. I'm trying to do